So in this video, this is the continuation to the SAT and SAT2 video that I previously posted to assist with specifically the reading comprehension section and for SAT2 literature as a whole. Now, what I told before was that you have to be an active reader and such, and active reading makes your skills honed and better able and quicker to find tone, mood, whatever literary elements that you need to find in order to see emphasis, whatever their intentions are, and I mean the authors by them. And for the SAT critical reading section, they often say, don't read the entire long passage, don't read the short passage. You don't actually have to read the entire thing, but you do need to get a gist of it. And in order to get the gist, if you have to read the entire thing, well, then you should read the entire thing to get the gist. Otherwise, you also need to read the italicized blurb as well before you do it. Thankfully, on the SAT there is an italicized blurb, where on the SAT2 sometimes there isn't, so that makes it more difficult. But the italicized blurb usually states some position, or you can guess on what position the person will be if they're on a certain topic that they're discussing. You can find their bias by your own implications and means. Um, Usually for SAT2 critical reading, when you're asked to find context in line, they do it 5 lines before, 5 lines after that context on a certain page or certain line. And typically, that usually is the way to do it, except it varies greatly. So there's never a 5-line rule that would exist then. It's just you have to get the tone and understand it yourself. It's as simple as that. There are also tone words that some people do not know. There's the Princeton Review book that does go over a large amount of tone words. Among these are didactic, equivocal, whimsical. These words you should know when you do it, because they'll ask about what's the tone in this, and you'll need to know these words. Um, Also, Unarius was one that I witnessed. It's like spelled like this. It means over here you can see that this collective group of letters, the ERR usually is like error, something like erroneous, something a lot of mistakes. And I witnessed on the SAT2 literature part that one of these was one of the words that was an accept question, like accept this, yada yada. And that was basically the correct answer, which I in fact did not choose because I did not know what this meant at the time. Anyway, for the SAT2, it's much like the SAT critical reading, except it's more difficult, more specialized into that area. I believe they used to have a SAT2 writing, but they took it away because the SAT has writing. They still have the SAT2 literature. For whatever reason, I have no idea, but colleges may or may not look at it. Usually, they may not because of your SAT standing. Um, but hey, it's an SAT2, you could do it for fun. And you could do it to go on your record as well, in double English. So anyway, the SAT2, the only addition to the SAT critical reading, that it's the SAT critical reading plus poetry, plus a lot more tone, and plus a lot more accept and Roman numeral questions. And that makes it a lot difficult. Not only that, it's 60 questions, you have about an hour, you better read pretty fast. So that's basically what you need to know for the SAT2 literature and SAT reading comprehension as well. And the only true way to really study for this is you can't read the book. There's no way that you can possibly read all the books that are going to be on the exam, because number one, they don't tell you, and number two, it's only selected from a little bit of a section from the book. So there's no way, because they're going to go in more detail into a little section than over a large section. And for the SAT2, It's recommended that basically what you do when you read actively. When you read a book, it's normal. You ask, what's the tone? What are they implying? What are they trying to tell me by this word? What literary device are they using? Although it's not to be meant as you memorize literary terms, it's to be meant as what does this literary device do for me? What does it tell me about the author? What does it show me? You might have a syntax question on the SAT2 literature, and you might have a diction question. You might have any question. You might have an apostrophe. All of these, you will see alliteration. Definitely, if you see poetry, you'll see alliteration, the repetition of consonants, and usually with poetry, you see basic poetry words. Heroic couplet, um, that sort of thing. Iambic pentameter and rhyme scheme is known for poetry, but otherwise, it's very straightforward, and there's no real way to study for this these two parts of exams. Basically, the only real way is to know how to find tone and know literary elements and know what authors are saying. Also, you have to know irony, like why is this ironic? You gotta be able to really in-depth read it and understand it. Um, for SAT 2, you have to manage your time more. SAT, take your time, just not too much time. Take it to reasonable amounts, obviously. The SAT2 is more difficult, as said before and previously stated. Books recommended are usually either Princeton Review or Kaplan because the Barron's is very difficult. Now, I have the Barron's, and the Barron's for me is insanely difficult, and I don't really recommend it because it's an insanely difficult book. But usually the insanely difficults prepare you more for the exam. Although because it's insanely difficult, it's sometimes a little unfair. That's okay because you'll have to be able to deal with unfairness at some points in life. Also, there is no italicized blurb as stated before, so you will have to derive all of your answers strictly from the passage and nowhere else. Um, Usually in the passage there's some sort of evidence previously stated to correlate to whatever question you're doing, so there's no real reason to get it truly wrong as it's an open book test. The only really thing you could get wrong is if you didn't read it correctly or you read literature and you take it too literally all the time and don't understand meaning. There are also Bible references and such, and that can be a pain if you're not used to those. But usually throughout all literature and some literature, there are Bible references, some Goliath, whatever you want to shove in there, Adam and Eve. And you have to know the basics of that. And practice, practice, practice. That's the main key to reading comprehension. It's not that it's difficult, it's just a tricky situation because there's no true way to actually study for it besides practicing. And even if you do poorly on the practice, it's okay because the more you keep doing it, the better you'll get, and eventually you'll figure out, oh, what's the way to do it. And also, don't really try to second guess yourself on something. If there's evidence in the passage of that something exists, don't second guess based on your opinion. You second guess based on your opinion, you're gonna get it wrong because most likely the people who design the multiple choice questions have one of those as an answer, in order to trap and trick you. So basically just strictly adhere to those rules, that you stay on the ball about it. You don't want to digress, and you don't want to put your own opinions into the work. It's as simple as that. It's just do it. Basically, literally, just take it on and practice. And that's basically it for part 2 of that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.